Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. I'm Zemo, the dad in DPS, and once again we are talking about Dune Awakening, and we are less than a week away from the early launch of the game on the 5th of June. And I am reaching levels of hype that I've not reached in a long time. And with that week timeline coming into frame, we have a lot more cool new information about the game that the developers released in a recent live stream. And today we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get into it, don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. And let's get on with this video. Now, the live stream is linked below for anybody that's interested. I think that it's a valuable source of information that would help if you go there and, give it some support, because Dune Awakening is going to be an awesome experience for me and hopefully for you guys as well. Now, we're going to talk generally about what we saw in the live stream, and the first aspect that I'd want to go into is the gameplay aspects that were missing from the open beta that I experienced, and I know some of you will have as well. And the great thing about it is this is giving us a glimpse into the mid to late game where base building and cooperation become a more prevalent thing. Now, the thing about the mid game is that you are obviously exploring the world of Arrakis, of Dune, a bit more in depth, and you're going to different biomes, different places, and taking part in different activities. And they gave us a little sneak peek and a glimpse into that, where, for example, you gain access to the second vehicle that you can, which is the buggy. Now, the buggy can be customized in all manner of different ways, like the sand bike, but the advantage of the buggy is that it has a massive storage capacity, and you can put a mining laser on the back of it. It has several seats, so you can be the driver or you can be the miner. So you can literally sit in the back of this buggy and mine nodes and put it directly into the sand buggy's storage capacitor. And this is just a great feature. I can't think of many games where they look at optimizing a resource harvesting kind of method. If you think most survival games, you've got games like Rust, games like Age of Conan or Conan Exiles. Conan Exiles? Age of Conan was the MMO, wasn't it? Well, either way, a lot of these games have manual kind of mining methods, manual harvesting methods, but there's not really an automated and a more industrial aspect to them a lot of the time. And this is the kind of nature of our world as it is. When you go to mines these days, they are bored out and gouged by machinery. They aren't done by hand. So it makes sense that a game that's set in the future, you are going to be using inventions and contraptions in order to optimize the way that you approach the resource gathering aspect. And the whole thing about Dune is it is central to the plot and the narrative. If you've read the books, if you've watched the movies, the spice melange, the most important resource in the galaxy, this is what everything is about. This is what everything surrounds. The core element of Dune is the spice. The spice must flow. So resources are narratively and mechanically the most important thing in Dune, in any version of it. So the fact that they've put so much thought and so much effort into how you approach these gatherings of resources is insane. And you see that with the late game resource gathering of the Spice Melange as well. They showed an operation to resource guard the Spice Melange in the deep desert, where they had multiple ornithopters flying around and circling this huge spice blow. And there's someone on a sandbike driving around in circles, dropping thumpers to lure away the sandworms. Meanwhile, the harvester's in the centre, sucking up all that spice melange and gathering it for the guild that's doing this. And you could see how coordinated and how organized the group was. They were very, very good at what they were doing. And obviously, this is the developers probably playing around and figuring things out and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work and if the programs are working as intended. But it looked fun. It looked like everybody had their role, everybody had a thing to look out for, whether it be worm sighting, whether it be enemies coming in with other ornithopters or on the ground in bikes or in buggies. And it just added this element of, it looked grand, it looked large, it looked amazing. And I think this is the kind of thing where the resource gathering in Dune Awakening feels, just at a glance, obviously until we play it, I'm not going to be able to say that fully. It feels on the next level from all these other survival games. It feels different. It feels unique, but obviously still retains that element of the similarity. And I'm going to be honest, in most games that I play that are MMO style, I act like one of those Chinese gold farmers. I just run around gathering crap and taking it back and then trying to sell it for an exorbitant sum. And I see myself doing that in this as well. Now, one of the things that they spoke about and they showed in the live stream, and they have spoke about in previous live streams and information and interviews and things like that, is the fact that Dune Awakening is going to be a game where you can assume certain roles, certain things that you want to do, whether you want to be the base mum. You know, every survival game has a base mum where somebody stays home at the base, keeps everything tidy, you know, maintains the area and makes sure things are organized and things like that. And that role in a bigger group is obviously a much bigger role than you would expect. But there's lots of different roles you can take. You can take the role of a scout. Now, this is something that I find incredibly intriguing, is involving the deep desert specifically. Now, if you've played the open beta, you'll know that you could scout an area by climbing up to a tall bit, firing a beacon, and it would reveal the map there. Now, the advantage to that is you can see what's in that area. You can see the different nodes, you can see the different structures and dungeons, places that you can go and take part in PvE, PvP, all that kind of jazz. But in the deep desert, the issue with that being is that map is constantly changing on a week by week basis. When the Tuesday comes along for the deep desert, it completely is eradicated by a Coriolis storm and rebuilt in a different manner. So the desert in week 1 is not the desert in week 2. And because of this, scouting it becomes incredibly important. Now, what they said in the live stream is there is 81 different segments to the deep desert. Now, that's 81 sections to scan. And what you can do is, as you scan these sections in the deep desert, you can then create a cartography chart, which you can then sell or share with people depending on what you want to do, which then opens this whole role of, you can actually be this guy that goes around scouting and then selling your plans, which in turn you could, in theory, you know, make so that people and guilds and clans don't attack you because you're wearing a very specific set of gear, and they go, no, leave that guy alone, he scouts the plans for us, we don't work with him, but he sells us the plans cheap and we've got to deal with him. There's ways that you can play this game that exist and live outside of the standard, I am going through the game story by story and completing these things and shooting people. You can be a freaking spice trader. You can be, as I said, a scout. You can be an interstellar goddamn architect, because you can build a base, scan it, and then sell that plan to other people. And this just blows my mind in terms of how complicated and how simple it could potentially be. I'm just looking forward to seeing what roles we all pick, what roles I end up playing, because I genuinely don't know. Everything about this game, everything about it, as I hear more and more and I see in these interviews and these live streams, I'm just overwhelmed with joy and possibilities. And it's just such a cool thing to see. Now, as I was saying, like, you can play all these different roles and do these different things. And this plays into the Landstrad system as well. The Landstrad system is essentially the end game equivalent of Connect 4. Is the best way to describe it. Now, when you go to the Landstrad board, you have the two major houses, Harkonnen and Atreides. But then you have a lot of minor houses. And the Landstrad's goal is to win over these little minor houses. Now, you can do that through different things, where it be PvE combat, taking out certain enemies. It could be from delivering resources to them. It could be from delivering spice to them. And it could also be from taking PvP checkpoints in the deep desert and controlling it and stopping the opposing faction from taking control of it and holding that for a set time. So, no matter what way you want to play the game and what role you assume, you can contribute to the Landstrad board and to your significant house. And I do believe that, like, you can pick Atreides, you can pick Harkonnen, but I'm fairly certain early in development they said you can abstain from picking either and play kind of both sides, depending on how you want to do it. But there is distinct benefits from choosing one or the other, and there's no real benefit from abstaining, from what I understand. But essentially, yeah, you take each of the houses on the board, and once you reach a resource cap or a percentage of, you know, whatever you want to call it, like renown or whatever. Once you reach that, that house is then claimed for your faction. And the great thing about this is it isn't just as simple as whoever claims the most factions or the most squares on the board wins. It also works, as I said, like Connect 4. If you claim a row, whether it be vertical or horizontal, you gain more faction points than if you were to just claim random factions on the board. And this adds a whole new kind of dynamic to this kind of thing, where once one of the factions, like whether Atreides or Harkonnen, has 4 in a row, and that last box is there, it is then the opposing faction's entire duty to try and sweep that out from under them. Because if you do, then you stop them from gaining more points and a better standing in the Landstrad. And the whole reason you want to do this is by the end of the week, once they've figured out who has won, whether it be Harkonnen or Atreides, you then get a boon for your faction. And this could be something like loot drops in the deep desert aren't you don't lose everything, for example. Or in the case of, it was shown in the live stream, there becomes a trader NPC that shows up in your faction's respective village or, you know, faction hub, and they have a special NPC vendor that has weapons that are unique, and, you know, you have access to these unique weapons for the week, whereas the other faction does not. So there is a distinct benefit in taking part in the faction politics of Dune and using your specific skill set and role and clan and guild or whatever you want to call it in order to take control of the Landstrad and give yourself a leg up over the opposition for that. And this is honestly the thing about Dune Awakening. As I've said, we've covered roles, we've covered the Landstrad, but the developers have embellished on more of the details of what you can do in the game as a group and as a solo. And to be honest, as a group, obviously you're going to have a better time. You're going to be able to build bigger bases and gather more resources as a large clan and a large group. And inherently, if you're doing these things as a large group, there's going to be a bigger downside to that in the form of tax. So tax is something that you pay on your bases in the later game, and a solo is going to pay significantly less tax than a 40-man clan. And this kind of offsets that, but obviously the 40-man clan is going to have a lot more opportunity and ability to gather the resources to sustain any type of tax. So there is that kind of thing, but you can play this entire game on your own. You can be the type of guy that only gathers spice in the Haga Basin. You can still gather spice outside of the deep desert. There are miniature spice blows inside the Haga Basin as well. I encountered one during the beta, and I was kind of shocked because I didn't think they were there. And this is the thing. Whatever role you want to play, whether it be in a massive group or not, you can take part. And something about the live stream that really hit me is that they are also catering to the PvE players out there. I know for a fact not every one of you wants to take part in massive multiplayer PvP. Not everybody does. I would love to do that. I'd love to take part in that, but it isn't what I'd want to do all the time, because when I play online games, there is a segment of time where I want to just do my own thing and just gather stuff and grind and, make my fortune, make my fun. But equally, there are times where I want to spend time with other players and do some crazy, wacky stuff. And an interesting thing about the endgame PvP is that being a bigger group isn't necessarily going to make things risk free for you. Now, a factor that is in this game is the party system, and each party can be 4 people. The problem with that being is anybody outside of that party in a PvP area can be hit by an opposing party. Now, if you've got a guild of 40 people, you have 10 parties of 4. And that basically means you have 36 people in your own guild that you could accidentally kill. Now, this is the real thing about it. If you don't know what all your teammates look like, all your clan or guild look like, it presents some opportunities for people to sneak into the crowd and then do some sneaky shit, like shooting people while they're not looking, or eliminating the leader, identifying who's in charge and killing them. And then their group can then descend upon you. And this brings this whole kind of dynamic of, even when you're surrounded by a huge group of your own people, you're not 100% sure if you can trust all of them, because they could decide to just gun you down at any given point in these PvP areas. The only people you can trust are the people in your team that have numbers above their head and you know they are in your squad. And this, as I said, opens up so many different factors where you could accidentally wipe out your own guild in PvP combat if you're doing certain things. Again, as I said, there's ways around these kind of things where you could all have the same swatches, the same color sets, the same uniforms, the same gear, and identify yourselves with that. But that also opens up the fact that if you're using the same set day in, day out, other groups can then chameleon their way in, sneak in, do crazy stuff, and it opens up this whole dynamic of, like, what can you do to mess with people and do things in PvP that you weren't going to expect. Granted, if you're one guy in a group of 40 people and they're all your enemies, you're not going to win, but you could certainly mess with them and do some crazy stuff. And then, as I said, your clan and your guild could then descend in and wipe the rest of them out. So there are factors in here that make PvP not as simple as the biggest group wins, because the biggest group can kill each other by accident, even if they are coordinated. So PvE players are definitely getting a lot of support and a lot of things that they can do in the game. And PvP players are getting some crazy janky shit that's going to be hilarious to watch when the game is released. Now, I kept saying there that PvE players are going to be catered to when it comes to, it's not just the endgame, it is exclusively PvP. And a huge section of the Deep Desert, though they consider it the not true deep desert, because the true deep desert is the expansive dunes and the roaring sands, and the place where the Fremen live, and the thing that you see in the movies and you read about in the books. But there are PvE areas in the deep desert that give you access to advanced schematics and resources that you will need in order to challenge Arrakis in different and more elaborate ways. On top of that, there's also going to be instance locations. The one that they showed in the stream was of like a water baron's house that you have a mission to go in and basically assassinate him. And the way that you've built your character, the different things that you're using, change the way that you can approach or should approach the actual mission and the instance. For example, if you've got a sugar wire claw, you can just fly over the walls and bypass the physical boundaries that are in place. If you are using the way of the voice, you can use your run move to just basically bypass things by just zipping past, or your voice in order to make enemies completely oblivious to the fact that you're there in the first place. And this is the thing about games like this, and what I like about Dune Awakening and everything that we're being told about it and shown, is that when you give people creativity and you just say to them, this is a sandbox, go do what you want, here's the building blocks of what you can do, let's see what you do, you're going to find that humanity has infinite creativity combined with infinite stupidity. And sometimes we do something so creative it is the smartest damn thing you've ever seen, and sometimes we do things that are so stupid that it's laughably funny and just makes you burst out into laughter. And just I'm just so looking forward to seeing all the stupid things we come up with and all the genius things we come up with. And this is the thing about it, PvE is still a massive aspect to this game. There is a lot of PvP in the endgame, but there is still a lot of PvE and things that you can do without ever having to shoot another player in the game. And from the PvE aspects, I don't think it would be smart to not talk a little bit about the PvP. Now, when it comes to PvP, as I said earlier, you don't have friendly fire on anyone apart from your own team. So there are 3 other people that you can't shoot in the entirety of the game. And this, again, is going to add massive dynamics to it. You aren't going to be able to just go around as a Zerg blindly. You're going to have to plan it out. You're going to have to basically work with the different people in your groups and figure out how not to accidentally kill each other. On top of this, like, the benefits from PvP are to an extent unknown by the wider public. I know there's going to be some, like, if I kill you in PvP, I'm going to be able to pick up some of the stuff that you had. Now, whether that's going to be in the form of any equipment, I don't know. But I do know that there are rules around PvP deaths in the deep desert that aren't in the just general game. So in the deep desert, you're going to have less rights to get your loot back than if you're in the normal areas. You know, the deep desert is going to be a bit more like the Wild West, where there is the potential that you die, you lose everything that's on your inventory. Whereas outside of the deep desert, it's more of a, like, you die, you lose the money that was on you, and you lose resources that you've picked up, but you don't necessarily lose your gun. That is depending on Landstrad rules, which can, you know, make it very different in the long term. But we'll see. We'll see how that works, and I'm not 100% certain on it. But PvP does have a lot of different aspects to it. You have the amount of different builds and combinations that you can use in terms of skills and passives and things like that. And these have different functions in PvP and PvE in so many different ways. The Shiga Claw can pull someone towards you, but it can also be used to F off out of the combat scenario altogether to get a better vantage point, to get higher ground. And if you've got a Shiga Claw, you are at a greater advantage of someone that doesn't in a wide open area that has higher vantage points. But in a closed area, you might find that it's more of a hindrance because it doesn't yield you the same amount of benefit. And this is the thing about this game. There is going to be a lot of planning and figuring out what builds work best. On top of that, it might not just be as simple as what builds work best, but what build combinations work best in your 4-man squads, in your massive guild Zergs. You'll all need to figure out different ways of playing and different ways of formatting your squad. And this, again, brings up so many different possibilities. There's different vehicles with different weapons on them. How will you approach that? How will you deal with ambushes? How will you deal with different things? And it is going to be a very complicated and interesting aspect to the game. They've also changed the combat system from the beta. There was a lot of issues with staggers and issues involving certain things would just be way too broken and overpowered. Once you got a stagger on an enemy, you could just continually stagger them and eventually kill them. But they've changed that, so heavy attacks and slow attacks are now different, whereas before I think the heavy attack and the slow attack were essentially the same thing. But they are, you know, they are working on the PvP and the combat aspects of it to improve it and make it better. And this is something that's great. I think that's a big factor of why they delayed the live release of the game. I mean, technically we should be 9 days into the official launch. Technically 14 days, 2 weeks into the official launch, but they put it back to June. And I like a company that will delay their game. Why do I like that? Because it means that they care that it's released in a non-broken and shitty mess. And Funcom has definitely inspired confidence in them. And I know there's a lot of people out there that I've seen that are talking about like the Conan XL's PvP system and how Funcom made it very pay to win and not fun and all blah 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 blah. The thing I would say to that is it's not the exact same team. It's not the exact same team that's developing this game. It's the same company, but that doesn't make it the same team. On top of that, it's not the same game, and it is divided by one thing that all games developed by any company is divided by, and that is time and experience. The things that they found maybe didn't work, and things that they found that maybe weren't right for the game, they might implement or not implement in this one. And from the fact that it is seemingly a much bigger experience and involves more vehicles and different things, I haven't seen anything that's made me go, this is a bad thing. I haven't looked at the PvP and went, Funcom are gonna ruin it. There is definitely going to be some issues. There always is when a PvP system is introduced to a game. There's always going to be balancing problems and things that haven't been anticipated. And when the game comes live, they're going to see them. And in all hopes, they're going to fix them, they're going to rebalance them and adjust them. You just need to have faith in the company and the developers and give them the benefit of the doubt. If it comes to a year's time and the PvP system is utterly broken and shit, then fair enough. You have every right to go, yeah, called it. But you can't say that before the game's out, and you can't say that before you've experienced it. At least that's my point of view on it. So that is overall what I think about Dune Awakening and the live stream and the new information that we've been given during this previous live stream. And again, we have just a week to go before this game is released. Now, if you are interested in purchasing Dune Awakening, click my link down below. It's an affiliate link for the game, and it helps support the channel. Obviously, like, comment, subscribe, because that also helps support the channel. And we will be live streaming Dune Awakening on the 5th of June, probably on the 6th of June as well. And then we'll be playing through it and doing things, and we'll be making lots of videos, doing lots of things involving it. I am like fully locked in for this game. This is going to be an experience of I'd say the decade for me. I am super looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are as well, because this is such a great franchise that I have adored for years, absolute years, and I've been waiting for this game since they announced that it was in development. So I'm excited as not the word. Like, I am just filled with anticipation. I've not been able to play anything else in any serious way since, I want to say, like 3-4 weeks. I'm just that anxious and ready to play. So yeah, as I said, like, comment, subscribe, click the links down below, and we'll catch you all next time in Arrakis. Good night, guys.